Welcome back to the SmartOar Quick Video Guide series. Today we're going to talk about communicating the curve. Once you've developed a basic understanding of how to use your SmartOars and how to get the data from them, it becomes a matter of integrating the SmartOars into your program. The first and most basic step is to begin using SmartOars as a teaching tool. The most immediate way is to do this with live feedback in the boat using your SmartOar tablet. The tablet can be held by a coach in the launch, a coxswain can take it into the boat, or you can record some strokes, bring the tablet into the boat, and show it to rowers live on the water. And this is a great way to get immediate feedback of how the performance is going. The next step is to use it after practice. Now you can save that stroke information on a tablet and replay it on the tablet. You can share it on a laptop if your SmartOars have been in self-record mode, or take it from the tablet and replay it on that laptop. And then from within that SmartOar program on your PC, you can email pics or video of the curves from the program very simply just by pushing one button in the program and then sending that out to your athletes. When you begin using it as a teaching tool, there are several challenges. And the first is the challenge to the coach. Can you define the ideal curve? The second is to develop language to describe this to your athletes and then to assess them and where they are in their progress. And then finally, it's a challenge to the rower to change their curve. And this may not be how they've thought about rowing in the past, so it can be a bit of a challenge to the rower. First step is the challenge to the coach. Can you come up with your ideal curve? Can you articulate it? We go here to the four corners graph. This particular version of it is taken from Valery Kleshnev's site BioRow, but you can find it in any number of books and publications over the years in which rowing coaches have assessed different styles and here given names to them. And you see that each one has a unique curve based on the application of the leg and the trunk power during the course of the stroke. So you can do some more research into this and come up with one of these curves that suits your view of rowing, or you can use them as a springboard and work on your own. There are some fairly common curves that are easy to describe using different language, and one here is the Close Encounters. If you've ever seen the movie, you'll recognize this rock, but you'll also see that it looks very much like a pretty common curve. So this might be the curve that you're trying to elicit from your rowers, or it might be one that you see, but this is one way of coming up with a name from outside of rowing. But if we want to have a comprehensive approach, we need to come up with something that can talk a little bit more about the different kinds of stroke that we'll see. One way is to talk about a theoretical maximum. So we're talking here not about the best rowing stroke, but about what would be the largest area under the curve, the largest impulse given to the boat. And that would be with an immediate straight line up, straight line across, and straight line down. This curve is some percentage of that theoretical maximum. So one way of talking about your goal curve is to look at how it would fit into this theoretical maximum. Once again, this is not talking about how to move a boat, simply talking about how one gets the greatest impulse for a given stroke duration and given maximum force on the oar. That can be a framework for what you decide. We see here a stroke in green, which is fairly similar to that ideal stroke where the green line goes fairly straight up, straight across, and straight down. So it can be rowed fairly closely anyway. And again, you're going to have to decide whether this is the best stroke to move the boat, but it can be a way of framing what you look at next. So our next goal is to develop a language to describe these curves. And in our first use with this system, we borrowed from synthesized music. And if we go back to the 1980s in particular, when there was quite a lot of work on this, we saw a way of describing the musical envelope that talked about the attack, decay, sustain, and release of a note. And we can see on the y-axis amplitude and on the x-axis time, very similar to the way a curve is displayed in the SmartOar program. So using this language can be a great way to communicate the various parts of the stroke to your athletes. And we see it here in musical form, but it's very similar when we look at it in rowing form with the attack of the curve, how steeply it rises and how quickly. The next, the decay, if there's a drop off from that initial spike, the sustain, and then the release. And you can use these terms to describe any shape of rowing stroke. But once you get comfortable with that, it can become a language that you use not just when reviewing SmartOar, but when you're in the launch, coaching live, or when you're talking with your rower about his or her form. This language can be a way to integrate the SmartOar information into your coaching and to challenge them. And it's really not just a new technique. It gets back to the talks of Steve Fairbairn on rowing almost 100 years ago now, where he discussed coaching to the movement of the oar, not the body. And we can do the same thing with SmartOar when we talk about trying to create a curve. You can, if you wish, leave it to the rower and his or her body to create that curve. But the feedback that you get from the SmartOar system and the language that you use in translating that to movement on the water can be very helpful for some rowers. So the next step is challenging the rower to change using this. And here we have a graph of some college freshmen, and you can see that there's some consistency in the attack or the beginning of the stroke from 3 of the 4 rowers. And the orange stroke stands out as having a much less steep angle of attack, and that the peak comes later in the stroke. There's some other things that we can look at another time, but here that's the main difference to see that this is a freshman who's come from a program that rows one way, and she's in a 4 with 3 women who have learned to row in a different way. And you can see the difference quite clearly. After 2 weeks of talking through the SmartOar program and using the feedback from it, we now see a significant change 2 weeks later. And in this case, that same rower has changed her attack. She's now got that direct approach to the load. And you can still see the late peak. She's now in the blue curve, but you can see that she's made a significant change in how quickly she does get that force on the oar. So we are able to see a direct change in the force curve applied by the rower. And that rower does have a language to assess and make further changes. So once you've met these 3 challenges, you've brought SmartOars into a place where they're a significant teaching tool. So you've had the opportunity to define your ideal curve, or the curve that you're trying to elicit from your rowers. You have the opportunity to develop a language to describe and assess those curves, which you can then turn back into coaching on the water and challenge your rower to change his or her curve. Once we've done this, we're on the path to improvement, and that's really what SmartOars are all about. Once integrated into your program, they can be a great tool for helping your rowers improve their stroke. Thanks again for spending time with us today. We'll see you in the next installment of the SmartOar Quick Video Guide. And don't forget to check us out at smartoar.com.